Hello guys and welcome back to HJW Gaming and another Age of Empires mobile formation guide, this time taking a look at early guide archer builds for free-to-play players. I really hope that you enjoy. Now, for those who haven't seen, I've already done an archer guide for willing to spend players. I deliberately released that first as I think it's one of the strongest formations available in the early game, but also to help describe through the free-to-play alternative, as the issue is going to be that both Mulan and Rani Durgavati, who were critical to the success of that spend formation, are not available to free-to-play players. So we have to build from a completely different base when we look to build a free-to-play formation. If you haven't watched that video, definitely take a look on my channel. So we're going to have to reset this formation back to blank whilst we start taking a look for what we can do for free-to-play players. Now, early game in particular, which is what we're looking at here, there isn't a huge amount of strong free-to-play available archer heroes. The first of which we're going to take a look at is Josephine. Josephine, of course, is one of the first heroes that you get at the start of the game, and she is instantly available as an archer hero. While she's unlikely to ever be your strongest hero, she can at least do a job, which is what we're looking at for her here. She doesn't have the same DPS potential as Mulan, however she does still have some half-decent damage dealing skills, and that starts with her commander skill, as of course we're using her first in her army, so this will be an activated skill. So the commander skill, Steel Rose, deals 1 instance of might damage, and it's a very high amount of might damage. Currently at my level, nearly 500%, so it's a very high instance of might damage. It also will activate reasonably soon, as it takes 200 rage to activate, but she starts with 120 rage at the start of battle. Her signature skill follows in a similar vein, with Warcry. Now this again deals might damage after launching a normal attack, aka it's a secondary strike skill. After launching a normal attack, you deal 1 instance of might damage to the enemy troop of this percentage, currently for mine 62%, and you recover a number of your troops. So this makes her not just a DPS, she also has a little bit of support, as she can therefore get that healing and recovery for your units. So she's a little bit more tanky, keeping your units alive. Now this will be important, of course, as a secondary strike skill, similar to the spend formation. We're going to be looking to activate this skill as often as possible so that we can get repeat instances of might damage and also repeat troop recovery. Therefore, we're going to follow a similar vein with her optional skills. The secondary strike skills I would recommend are Sunder and Weak Spot Attack. Now, of course, as a free-to-play, it's likely you're not going to take more than 1 legendary skill, so I will only recommend the 1. But actually, Sunder I would still recommend keeping in this free-to-play formation due to its synergy with our second commander, which I'll come on to at the time when I talk through him. But Weak Spot Attack I would recommend putting in as your second skill option. The reason we're taking this as it's another secondary strike skill which can deal a great amount of damage. In this case for me, at base level before upgrade, 75% might bonus, and it also increases your hero's damage by 6% for 1 turn, so you'll get a good damage increase on Josephine, therefore increasing again the damage of her skills. So I'd recommend taking this just to maximise her damage as much as possible. Now to circle back to Sunder, the reason we're keeping this skill is A, it deals a good instance of might damage and is a secondary strike skill, so again will synergise with our third commander and getting that double attack state, which I mentioned earlier on. But the second thing is it also synergises with our second commander with the fact that it inflicts the rout state. If you were going to look to take 2 legendary skills, I would recommend your second legendary skill being double attack. Unlike the spend formation, we're not going to have 2 different heroes both providing double attack stance chances to Josephine as commander. Therefore, there's less of a chance that she enters the double attack stance, but that can be increased instead by taking double attack as the optional skill. This gives her an activation chance, in this case 8%, of entering the double attack state, and it increases her might, strategy and armor. The main thing we're worried about is increasing her might to increase her damage further. But what we want is that double attack state. That's the main thing we're looking for here. So we get multiple instances of normal attacks, because of course when you get double attack, you get double the number of normal attacks, which every time you hit a normal attack, all of your secondary strike skills have a chance to activate. So if we can get her in double attack, we have twice the number of chances for all of these high damage skills to activate. Now with Josephine, of course, each of her ranks are useful, but they don't provide a particularly massive damage spike. The first rank increases Warcry's recovery rate by 35%. That's, of course, the troop recovery provided by her signature skill. The rank 3 increases Warcry's damage rate by 65%. If I was looking to use her in a free-to-play early game formation, I'd be looking to get a 2-3 star just for this additional amount of damage. Now, of course, that's the damage rate available here with the one instance of might damage. So it does give it a reasonable increase, but as that one instance of damage is fairly low on its own, increasing it by a further 35% is not massive. 5th rank increases its activation chance. Of course, that's great, you have a higher chance of activating it, but it's not as high as the activation chance, of course, if you give her double attack stance, which is what we're going to be looking to do. So as a free-to-play player, if you have a load of Empire coins, I wouldn't spend a fortune trying to upgrade her. Something like 1 star is probably perfectly fine. So which of the limited number of archer heroes are we going to look to pair her with? Now the problem we've got is while Josephine will be our primary DPS, she doesn't have the highest DPS profile possible, so we're going to need a second damage dealer within this formation. So in which case, we're going to take King Derrick. Now King Derrick is someone who's available right from the beginning of the game as part of the Giants Roar event, and if you work with your fellowship, you can get him to 5-star rank fairly easily. So why King Derrick? The reason we're looking to take King Derrick is for his signature skill, Grace and Blessings. Now this deals an instance of might damage, which is again great, as Josephine isn't the highest damage dealer available, so we're going to look to get a little bit of extra damage boost given by our other heroes, so in this case from Grace and Blessings. But also if the target is in rout state, it increases their might damage taken for 2 turns. Now that rout state can be provided by the skill Sunder that we recommend stays on Josephine. If you decide to swap Sunder out and take double attack instead, as I recommended, then I would drop King Derrick from this formation and instead use him elsewhere. We're going to further look to boost this synergy by using, first off, his first epic skill here. We're going to look to keep Sunder. Reason again, deals might damage, so we get another instance of might damage support, but mainly the rout effect just here. And similarly, for his second skill, we will take Earth Crush. And the reason we're taking Earth Crush, exactly the same, might damage and the opportunity to inflict the rout state. This again will synergize with Grace of Blessings and hopefully inflict that opportunity for increased might damage taken. This will increase the damage being dealt not only by Derrick, but also by Josephine. Rank-wise, as a free-to-play available commander, you should always look to increase his rank as high as possible. However, his primary damage spike comes when he hits rank 5, as it increases all of your heroes' might damage by 20% when Grace of Blessings is activated, which of course is the synergy we're trying to create here. Now the last free-to-play commander we're going to look to add in here is one who anyone who's watched the Spend formation will be familiar with, and that is Atilla the Hun. Now, Atilla the Hun, as I explained in my previous video, the reason we're using him is for this signature skill, Annihilator. So this gives a percentage chance of all of your heroes entering the double attack state. Now, as I said, double attack state gives you an opportunity for multiple normal attacks, which will give you increased activation opportunities for your secondary strike skills. So in this case for Josephine, her signature skill is a secondary strike, and so are most of her optional skills. At least the ones that we recommended are all, other than double attack, of course, if you take that, but all of these skills here are secondary strike skills, so you increase her damage. Similarly for Derrick, this synergizes with the Sunder optional skill, giving increased opportunities to inflict the rout state. Along with that double attack stance that potentially can be granted by Atilla the Hun, it will also increase your commander's might by 50, so you get a nice damage increase as a result of that might boost. Optional skills, we're actually going to take a look a bit differently to what I recommended in the Spend formation. Now for his epic skills, we're actually going to look to keep Armor Piercer. The reason for this is it does deal a good amount of might damage, so again we get that little bit of extra support to make up for the lack of damage maybe from Josephine compared to other commanders, but it also reduces all enemy heroes' armour by an amount, so that again can reduce the enemy hero's damage resistance and increase the damage being dealt by your other commanders as well as Attila himself. The second epic skill, Infuriation, we will look to replace. Previously I recommended Critical Insight for the increased critical hit strike rate, but I think in this position actually the better choice would be Warrior's Hymn. The reason for this is it increases your next hero's might, so Josephine as primary DPS gets a nice might increase and therefore more likely to deal higher damage. And also it gives her a critical strike rate as well, so there is an opportunity for her to deal a critical strike, which means that she will deal a massive amount of damage if or when that activates. Of course, it's a low activation chance till upgraded heavily, which in a free-to-play formation is not going to be the case, but it's still a chance of increased damage. So what do you end up with? You end up with kind of a budget version of the spend recommended formation. You have a lower DPS commander being boosted with opportunities for the double attack state by Atilla the Hun, but a lower chance of the double attack state. But you still get a reasonable amount of damage, and if that does activate, Josephine can still deal a good amount of damage. If double attack state does activate, she has more of a chance of inflicting the rout state, which then brings Derrick into play and means that he will then deal a good amount of damage too. So Atilla the Hun is almost supporting both these two commanders rather than having two heroes supporting one main commander. You almost end up with one commander supporting two main damage dealers, if that makes sense. Now this of course is nowhere near the same level as the spend formation, and definitely in my recommendation I don't think this should be your main formation as a free-to-play player. A lot of people will also be asking, of course Harrison, you recommended Josephine and King Derrick in your free-to-play Swordsman formation. Which of them would you use it in? Now Josephine I recommend taking out of your free-to-play Swordsman formation, of course, as soon as other heroes become available, which I have detailed in these videos. However, King Derrick has remained a constant up until mid-game, and I definitely think King Derrick synergizes much better with the Swordsman formation and therefore should feature there instead of in an Archer formation, which then of course causes the problem of what do you do with your free-to-play Archer formation. And there isn't really any easy answer. Now, of course, with King Derrick dropped out, there are other Archer heroes, but both Rani and Mulan, as we said, are locked behind a paywall, and other Archer commanders, such as Yi Sun Shin. He is not a warrior, so you lose out on that damage bonus from having 3 warrior heroes with the relevant talent trees. So therefore, he doesn't synergize well at all. So I think the simple answer here is, if you're looking to use King Derrick in a Swordsman formation, then you can't really run this free-to-play Archer formation. Unfortunately, there isn't really an alternative. Of course, the other option would be to become somewhat of a low spender and just spend a few pounds, or a few of whatever your currency is, of course, to pick up Rani Durgavati, and you could then swap your formation round to have Attila the Hun in the second position, Attila the Hun in second and Rani in third, and you can then use Rani's abilities similar to how I recommend in my spend formation guide, and also change up the optional skills on Attila the Hun. Just don't use Hua Mulan and instead have Josephine. The other option, if willing to spend a little bit of course, is also to pick up a low ranked Hua Mulan, move Josephine into second, and then keep Attila the Hun with that double attack state, and I think you'll get an increased amount of damage. However, I understand for a lot of free to play players this will not be possible, so you will have to choose between using these commanders on the Swordsman or the Archer formation. Personally, I think they synergize better in the Swordsman formation, mainly King Derrick. That's not to say this formation is useless, as there is mid/late game, there is a free-to-play commander available called Bellevue, who comes out as a warrior archer and suddenly makes the free-to-play warrior archer formation very viable. So there is still value in running this formation and persevering with it up until that mid-game, so then when you've got it invested in, you can then get Bellevue and really increase the power of your formation. But I'll run through that in another guide. Anyway, with that, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments below. I always respond to my comments. If you found this useful, please drop a like. I massively appreciate it. And please consider subscribing to see more of my videos in the future. And with that, I've been HJW Gaming, and I hope to see you on the next one.